Today, I want to share with you the good news that today the Lord is going to show us things in Scripture that's going to help us make sense of the many things around us. For Icebreaker today, we played a game, three first things that you do when you wake up. Three first things you do when you, whatever, three best foods, three first things you spend on when you get your gaji. What's that? We didn't do that, right, Lionel? Okay, but how about this, right? Turn to someone around you and say, three first things you do with your gaji when it comes in. All right, take 10 seconds. Turn to the friend next to you, right? Bills, loans, rent, Netflix subscription, right? Cat, right? Spend on your cat. Okay? Today, it is my hope that this word, that the word that we're going to hear of God, Scripture, is going to help us make sense of the many things around us. The three things you buy at the grocer, the three things you spend on when your gaji comes in, the three people you want to meet with the most, the three things that bug you the most about going to work, whatever it is all around you. You know how sometimes these things can feel like they don't cohere? That they don't make sense, and you work so hard, but you don't really know why, just to make money, okay? And after you holiday so hard, you don't really know why, because you just FOMO, you need to experience everything in one destination, and then you're exhausted, right? And then you come home, then you need a holiday from the holiday, just to rest, and then after that, and you take on so many things in your life, but they don't all cohere. Each one is making its own demands of you. The reality, though, is that God did not create us for us to be incoherent. God created us so that there is a centerpiece. There is a thing about the way He created us so that would make sense, make everything around us make sense, because they all link back together. Today, we want to share about the stories behind how we are stewarding God's work. Every single one of us is a steward. Every single one of us is a custodian of something God has already started. God has started it. He began that work long before us, and He will continue to do it long after us. But it is our responsibility, solemn duty, to steward it well as it passes through our hands. You can think of it like a precious thing, like a baby being passed from hand to hand. You receive it, then you pass it on, right? And it's not your baby, okay? Now, if you were to receive someone's baby on your right, and then you turn to the person on your left, and in those few seconds you're holding her, right? And then you have to pass her on to the next person. How would you do the receiving? With lots of care. Some of you might be really, never hold baby before. Some of you will be like, I got this. And you give a good grip, and then you hold it tight, and then you pass it on. Make sure hands are there, grip is there. You got it? Okay, hand over, right? And that really is a picture of what our lifespan here on earth looks like. We are receiving something that was handed down to us from those who came before us. And we are stewarding it well in that really blink of an eye. 80, 70, 90 years, of our lives. Some live longer to 102, right? You receive it, and then you hand it on to the next generation, right? And it's a good and beautiful work. It all begins, though, at the very creation. In Genesis 2, God says this: the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to keep it. Now, the words work and keep might sound like, work, wow. Bosong, right? Eden, got to do work some more. It's like, I don't like going to work. I thought Eden was really beautiful and really nice. Now you just ruined Eden for me. I realized that Eden, they had to go to work, right? No. Work in its original form was supposed to be enriching and nourishing and joyful and fulfilling. And it's only after the fall that it became laborious and tedious and painful. Now imagine the thing you like to do the most. Now imagine doing it forever. And that the joys just keep multiplying, right? That was how work was originally created to be. The actually Hebrew words for it, for work and keep, the word for work is abad. It means to serve with labor, right? So you're going to serve with the work of your hands. You're going to actually get up and do something. You're not just, like click one button and then wait for the algorithm to work, This thing, you're actually going to work, but it's a service. It's a service unto God. And that's what the working is, and the keeping speaks of, the word is shamar, right? It speaks of guarding, protecting, watching over something. So if I say, hey, can you keep watch over this, right? That's the sense. And God has given to us His whole created order for us to till it, and for us to protect it, for us to bring produce out of it, and then to guard it and to maintain it. And so there is both a very active form of working, and there is a more protective, slightly more passive form of watching over it and ensuring that it remains well. Why and how is this important in our lives? It's because God has given us everything. The whole of the created order, everything that you have, everything that you see, originates in something God has created and has put into our lives. And therefore, everything around us is a form of stewardship. Somebody say stewardship. Now, the New Testament has a different word to express the same kind of thing. You can see it in a text like Matthew 20, where you see this word epitropos. Epitropos means a trustee. It's a trustee, someone that you have been entrusted with the care and management of something. And so if you are a trustee over a piece of land, it means that you hold that piece of land in trust for someone else, right? And so it's a big responsibility for you to play the role of being a trustee for something or someone else. And what are we trustees of? We are trustees of the gospel. We are trustees of the kingdom. We are trustees of the things of God and the story of God in our land. God has been doing something in our land. And today we want to talk about our story as SIB, and the story that He's led us on, the journey that our forefathers of our faith in our larger church, SIB church, right, that's been handed down to us. And today, every single one of us, especially for those of you who are taking up membership, we are becoming trustees of that narrative that's coming to us. And then we are being trustees to hand it down to the next steward after us. I want to share with you some grandfather story, right? You all like grandfather stories? I like to call them Akong Ama story, right? Okay. SIB. How many of you don't know what SIB stands for? Hey, legit. How many of you don't know what SIB stands for? Sidang, in jail, Borneo. Why Bahasa one, huh? Why is our church got a Bahasa name, right? And while we're at it, what does it mean, right? Sidang means church, okay? Or gathering. Right? Sidang means a church. Injil means the gospel, right? And Borneo means Borneo, right? Borneo, right? Then you should be asking, what's Borneo doing in KL, right? I'll get to that in a moment, right? It began, of course, as the Borneo Evangelical Mission, right? And there are three missionaries from Australia, Frank Davidson, Carrie Tolley, and Hudson Southwell, who came from Australia. Now, these guys all had their own thing, but they all came in their early 20s, I think Hudson Southwell, who wrote this book, Uncharted Waters, he had engineering background, and so he didn't let it go. He carried it with him to be a missionary. I think that's important mindset to have. Sometimes we think that, I let go of my corporate job to become a church worker. No, you become a church worker and you carry everything that God has sown into your former vocation into it. I was formerly a designer. I was formerly in film, video, writer. I did not leave that. I carried it into pastoral work. And today I continue those things continue to leak out of me as I go about my pastoral work. And it would be the same for Pastor Chiu, who was formerly a gynecologist and obstetrician. He carried his medical thing into the way he pastors as well. God never wastes anything. And so these three missionaries carried whatever their training was, came to Sarawak, okay, and encountered a tribe called the Lun Bawang. How many of you never heard of the Lun Bawang? Just give me a little wave, right? Okay, only 4 of you have never heard, right? No, I know. Yeah. No, it's cool. The Lun Bawang tribe. Now, I want to be maybe just a little bit nuanced and careful, because we are all living in an age where we are a lot more open and honest about colonial history. And colonial history has its not so nice parts of it. But I also want to share with you the way the story goes is that the Lun Bawang tribe was particularly more than the other tribes in that part in the Limbang River area, they were particularly more found alcoholism to be a problem, okay? And so the tribe was at that point, okay, virtually given over to a wastedness of being perpetually drunk. They were also headhunters, so whenever they were sober, they were killing each other. And maybe sometimes they were killing each other while they were not so sober as well, But there was widespread disease. The hygiene was really, really low. Little children were dying. It was a really, really bad shape. And this is to bring two sides of the colonial conversation together, okay? The Raja Brook, I think it was Charles Viner, or it could have been Charles at the time, right? Had already essentially marked that Lun Bawang tribe out for destruction. Like, you are not allowed to enter, they will self-destruct. If you go in, they will destroy you. I will not let British citizens go in, right? And so, or people of the Commonwealth to go in, right? They did not allow the missionaries to enter. And so, the missionaries had to work around it, but eventually they started making headway into the Lun Bawang tribe. And why did they persist? They persisted because they had this one truth, this one thought and one conviction. That conviction was that saving souls is not a lost cause. And so you had the British administration in Sarawak at the time saying that this tribe is a lost cause. Don't go there. Don't step in. We will not let you. They will destroy themselves. Let them. They are a lost cause. But God says that saving souls is not a lost cause. And so the missionaries went in. And over time, the gospel met one person, 2 people, 3 people. They would go from kampong to kampong. They would go on rivers, crocodile-infested rivers. And they will have the guns, right? Because they have to kill the crocodiles. And then they would reach a kampong. They will meet with the village head, and almost always the village head will come together with a witch doctor, Bobo Hizan, Bobo Lians, and then they would gather the whole village together. They would share the gospel, and so often, the first people to come to the Lord will be the witch doctor. And when the witch doctor goes, the rest of the village will come to Christ. They will bring out all in their headhunting, they will collect skulls. They will have a bunch of skulls basically that's their pride. That's their family pride. These are all the people from our enemy's tribe that we have killed, And they would tie a bunch of skulls up, and hung somewhere on the ceiling. They would take all that, they will burn it, and an entire village would come to the knowledge of Jesus Christ. Those villagers would be so deep in oppression that they would literally, because they are agricultural, right? So sometimes they will have these omens like, a crow flew from here to there. And then the witch doctor will say, this means you're not allowed to go out, and work in the fields for 1 month. And then just like that, the entire season's crops will just die, right? And out of fear, because they don't dare. Because if you do, the spirits will come at you, right? And so the enemy is absolutely real. Lies, darkness, spiritual oppression is absolutely real. That back then as it is today. And so when the light of Jesus Christ's gospel goes in and they are set free from the fear, set free from the oppression, they started to thrive as a community, right? Drunkenness started to go down, and they started to be able to order their lives, and thrive as a tribe in their context should, right? And so that's what happened over. Of course, the war years in 1941 until 45 interrupted the war. I forgot to tell you when. They arrived in 1928. And so we are literally 4 years away from celebrating 100 years of SIB or BEM, right, in Malaysia. The war years interrupted things, and some of our missionaries died in the Limbang camp in Kuching, right? And only Hudson Southwell came out of it, and of course, the rebuilding work needed to take place, right? And as they were rebuilding, of course, another major thing happened. They rebuilt from the 50s, 60s, but in the 70s, specifically in 1976, some of you with a background in Sabah and Sarawak, you will know in Sabah, the chief minister in 1976, right? Quite a notorious guy, he made it a law that all the foreign missionaries had to get out overnight, right? And so it happened in Sarawak, a little slower pace, but essentially in that year, all the foreign missionaries had to leave, and as a result of that, all their next generation, the local fledgling pastors, their local ministry leaders, their local evangelists, all had to rise up overnight. And it was a difficult time in the journey of the church, moving into that time. But God was very kind. And so in 1974, 2 years prior to the missionaries being kicked out, God, at 1973 to be precise, God had already sent a revival to take place among the Murut people, among the Kelabit people of the highlands. They're all adjoining each other, the Kelabit people in the highlands, then the Lumbawang people, they're all around the northern part of Sarawak. Now, there was a barrio revival in 1973, and then 11 years later, a Bakalalan revival in the neighboring area of Mount Murut as well. Okay, and this man here is Pak Agong Bangau. Okay, Pak Agong was a man like, really, I'm just going to start off by saying he was a man like any other man. In 1984, he was gripped by his conviction of his own sinfulness, right? Therefore, he's just like any one of us, right? He went up Mount Murut to pray alone. And he would make that hike up Mount Murut to pray and to pray and to pray over and over again. And over time, more people started joining him to go up to pray. There was a fervency, there was a hunger, there was such a contrition in Pak Agong, that he led the people of those tribes to seek God with a hunger, with a passion, with an honesty like never before. And that led to the Baklalan revival, and I'll tell you a few stories. All kinds of miraculous things took place. They would gather on the hillsides in big numbers in the mountains, like that. A little bit like the feeding of the 5,000, right? Lots of people gathered on the edge of a mountain, right? On one occasion, there were fireballs that started lighting up the night sky, okay? And those fireballs, that incident was reported in the New Straits Times, dated 21st of July, 1985. Barrio Baklalan revivals are highly documented. There are books about it, and the international Christian community acknowledges these revivals as well. There was a story of how on one day, right on those hills, God turned water into oil, and it turned, I think, rice, some flour into something, and it turned into flour, right? And they took the flour and they fried it in the oil. It became like breadsticks for people to eat, and that was an illustration of the miraculous things that were taking place. But it's not really ever about how the miracles. It's about the transformation of a people, to learn to trust God more and more. And so this incident, this picture in the center, Pak Agong was praying, And the account goes that he was gathered with a group of people. They were praying through the night, or something along those lines, on Mount Murod, and then a fire fell on a group of stones, a cluster of stones, and just shattered the stones, and fire fell from heaven and shattered the stones, and that was part of the things that was happening in the revival at Bakalalan at the time. And this is newspaper clipping of Pa Agong holding a shrapnel of the stone, to show what had taken place by supernatural power of God. In the years to come, we will hear stories of a group of girls who took a journey to Kalimantan to evangelize, and coming back home, their lamps went out, a little bit like the Bible story. And then literally, like the pathway back to their kampong lit up, and so with that light on the ground, they could find their way back. So many revival stories to share. And this would become the roots of how God lifted up the BEM, the SIB churches in Sarawak and in Sabah, as the missionaries had to be released back overseas. And the church continued to grow through the 80s into the 90s, during which time our founding pastors, Pastor Chu and Pastor Lee Chu, were in Sabah at the time. They ended up being part of an SIB church during there at the time. They were in SIB Likas, and then they went traveling. They went to Canada, Eventually, they came back to KL, and in that time when they come back to KL, over time, after 1 year of being in KL, they planted this church. They started this church called SIB in KL. And this would answer the question, what is Borneo doing in Kuala Lumpur? Through the 70s and 80s, thanks so much, Lionel. Through the 70s and 80s, there was a lot of students and working people who migrated from Sabah, Sarawak to West Malaysia. But here they have no church. Because here the churches either do church in English, or do church in Chinese, or do church in Mandarin, or Tamil, or Hokkien, right? Or Hakka. So there's no church for East Malaysians. And so for generations, East Malaysians here would either have to find their way to fit into an English language church. Many of them are Mandarin literate, so they'll find their way into some Chinese church as well, but it wouldn't be culturally that expression they are accustomed to. And so SIB KL was birthed as a form, SIB Semenanjung, if I may be more accurate, was birthed in order to accommodate and find churches for the East Malaysians who are here in West Malaysia. And SIBKL became one of those churches. It's an English service. There was a Bahasa service at the start, and then eventually the Bahasa service, we went our separate ways because we couldn't keep sharing the same building, and the story would go on and on. A lot of these stories are contained inside a white book. You know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to walk over here while I tell you stories, right? By the way, if you look at the picture on the photograph at the top, and the guy in white t-shirt with a lanyard, do you all know who that is? It's Elder Kuntat. It's a very young Elder Kuntat, right? This is Elder Kuntat right here, right? Of course, many of the people here are good old friends. That's Pastor Chu worshiping in our first church premises in Damansara Uptown. We were in Damansara Uptown, then we moved from there to CP Tower, which is next door to Bangunan Yin. Eventually, we ended up in Bangunan Yin, and then many years later, all the church plants. This book here contains lots of stories. It's a library copy. You can borrow it. Make sure you return, okay, not like the other book, right? You can borrow it, okay? We'll find a system for borrowing, okay? Go and read, because really this is, I don't know, in literary sense, we call these things myth-making, right? But it's not myth because it's real. It's really the stories that took place. So I want to encourage you later after the service to go pick a copy up and just thumb through it, if nothing else. But one thing that characterized SIB Church when I showed up in 2003, I visited SIBKL in mid-year 2003, okay, was that And I very quickly got assimilated, joined the team, joined the cell, was not very good at attending cell, and a cell leader would keep calling me. I was ghosting them all the time, and then they would keep calling me, hey Fergus, I noticed you haven't been to cell again, how are you doing? Just want to make sure you're okay. And after many rounds, I was like, these people really do care, and then I started showing up more regularly. And one thing though that was very regular was that missions trips to OA Kampongs, and later it will be mission trips to Sabah as well, was like a rite of passage. Everyone kind of like did it, or it felt as though everyone did it. And it came to be like the culture that it almost didn't matter whether you did membership class or you didn't do membership class. The real membership class was happening out there in the kampongs, when you actually went out, came back home, and then everything clicked. You knew what this church was about, right? And so missions trips were like a rite of passage. And that eventually would stay inside many of us, right, who were there in those days when we constantly went out, went to Raup, went to Gerantot, and then eventually, started going to smaller kampongs in Sabah as well. And this was the word that God put in my heart as time passed, as time wore on. God laid it in my heart. Now I'm going to cut many years, okay, because Sungai Buloh eventually happens, right? God laid it in my heart to plant a church. And I was really unsure. And I was going back and forth, and thinking, God, is this what you want? Is this what you don't want? And all kind of things. And then I was worried about the distance. How many of you live quite far from here, but you still make it all the way here? Right? Okay? Yeah. Good job, man. Good job for you, right? I was worried about the distance. I would open up my Waze and check. And then every day I would open up Waze and check, how many? Oh, yeah, 45 minutes. 40 minutes, And there was one morning I had to to visit a BM church. But before I left for the BM church, I just checked if I were to go to Sungai Buloh, how long? 45 minutes. And then that was like one of the major things blocking me from saying yes to planting a church. And I went to that BM church. I walked into that BM church, and the first thing immediately on the screen, on the wall, right in front of me, was these words, usahakanlah kesejahteraan kota ke mana kamu aku buang. Dan berdoalah untuk kota itu kepada Tuhan sebab kesejahteraannya adalah kesejahteraanmu. In other words, seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile. And pray to Yahweh on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. It's Jalan Welfare, by the way. Yeah. By the way, it's called Jalan Welfare outside here. And I knew. The moment I saw this, I knew. And some more, the BM would use like, ke kota ke mana kamu aku buang. It's like, wah, kena buang kota. Kena buang negeri. This is like, And over time, this happened, right? We planted the church right here in Sungai Buloh, an SIBKL church at Sungai Buloh. And so I realized that there is a Borneo in the name, there is a KL in the name, and there's a Sungai Buloh in the name, And of course, on week 3 of July 2020, we did a trial run service. This was right in the middle of the pandemic. It was supposed to open and launch 2020. We had plans for an April service, tak jadi because of the lockdown. In July, week 3, we did a trial service with the leaders. In week 4, the week after that, we had our inaugural service. Everything was over the internet, and this was what our church premises look like, right? Multiple screens, ring lights, lots of cables, microphones, and nostalgic, right? For those days, a little nostalgic for those days, right? And that's me preaching with a ring light on me. This, where camera is where the worship team is, and a different camera will be on it. So this ring light is for the worship team, this ring light is for me. And that's what church was in the early days. Eventually, we moved in here in 2020, okay? And you can see that we are still using music stand with a still on Zoom. Everyone's still looking into the camera, But of course, over time, we could close the distance, right? Put the chairs closer to each other. We could take off the mask. We could serve food. We could get rid of this thing or get rid of the computer on it and then speak with you all face to face. And right now, there is one camera all the way at the back and it's catching us and it's going to a Zoom account, out a Zoom call where about 7, 8, 9, 10 people regularly show up for online church. And that's how we are today. But the thing that God put inside me never left. And so the thing that God is saying is that for all of us, we are continuing to steward the legacy God has given us through Hudson Southwell, Frank Davidson, Kerry Tolley, through all the other missionaries in between, through Pa Agong and his wife, Ibu Bulan, and it's passed down to us, and we are supposed to do something. We can't sit on this and do nothing. We have to do something. We have to be disciple makers. We have to be people who extend the kingdom to others. We have to be those who steward what God has started well. And so we started going to the Jubilee Hostel in Tandik and Tambulion, right? We started to try to make inroads and do something sustainable and build the church that in East Malaysia that in our little small church capacity, we know how to. As members of Sungai Buloh, SIBKL Church, God makes us trustees of His perfect will over His land. God has a will over this land. God has a story that He started long ago, and He's continuing that story, and He brings us into a position of being trustees for Him. So He puts it in our hands. He says, I'm going to trust you with it. All of this is mine. All of the created world is mine. And then I put this into your hands. And you will be my stewards over it. You will care for it until your days are done and you hand it over to the next generation. We are stewards of the resources God has assigned to us. Amen? A bit of Bible. Remember just now we saw the Lord God took the man, put him in a garden to work and keep it. Remember that, right? Now, just a few verses after that, verse 15 here, verse 18 says, Then the Lord God said, It is not good that man should be alone. We always hear this verse in the context of marriage, right? And it is true. It is a very meaningful and foundational thing about marriage, truth about marriage. But in a more basic level, in a more primal level, it is essentially saying that, what it's saying, it's not good that we should be alone. We shouldn't be alone. And then his answer to that, in a specific sense, is he gives Adam, Eve, and then they become married, right? A husband and wife. But specifically, in its most essential form, we are not called by God to do things on our own. We are not called by God to do our walk with God as solo lone wolves. We covered this last week. God's world works best when we are not alone, and therefore the fellowship that you have among each other is also something that we are called to steward well. And your fellowship becomes something that can impact someone else's life, and their fellowship becomes something that can impact your life. And therefore, because God has called us into community, it is not something I got the chance to get into last week, but your giving to each other is your giving to God. Your giving to each other is your careful and good stewardship of the things God has put around you. He hasn't just put around money around you, right? He hasn't just put opportunities around you. He put people around you. And so your stewardship is also the stewardship of the people God gives you. 3 ways to steward what we have. The first one is, in a church, get cell. We have 8 cell groups in our church. And God's call for us is not to say, I don't want to do the cell thing. I don't want to do the community thing. I just want to show up in church and leave. Remember last week I told you, church is not what? It's not a sermon cinema. You don't show up just to catch the sermon, and then, after that you quickly go out because you don't want to get into the jam. No jam here, by the way. Yeah. But when you plug yourself into a community, I want to highly encourage every single one of you to consider, please find a cell group. Because it is in the cell that you can really be even more vulnerable, more honest, to know and be known, right? We talked about this last week, to give and to receive, to love and be loved. right? It is in a cell group that these things will take place. Though we are a nice, cozy size, and by and large on most Sundays we can pretty much over time know most of the people that we see here, but it is in a cell group that you can really know a smaller group very well. And they can know you very well. And they can care for you better than we can if we only meet like this in a big group. We have 8 cells right now, and I'm very happy to say that we are actually in the midst of planting a 9th cell, okay? And our cells are in all of these locations. We have 2 Monday night cells, one in BRP1 and one in Kapong, right? We have got 3 Wednesday night cells right here in Disara Central, one of them, and one in PJ Midtown and one in Gasing Indah. That would be the cell that meets in my house. And we have one Wednesday morning cell. Morning cell is a lady cell, okay, that meets online when we're transiting over to also meeting in Sri Damansara. And we are in the midst. We have got 2 Friday night cells, one in Uptown and one that's for now online only. And then we are in the midst of planting a new cell in Sungai Buloh, also on a Friday night. Right? So if you are not cell, look at this and look at the locations, look at the days on which the cells take place. And I want to highly encourage you towards this. Make a community in church, a small group in church, a priority this year. Make it a priority this year. Because many years you come and go, you told yourself, no need la, later la, one day la, 1 year la, you know. No, this is the year. This is the year you say yes to God's call for you to be plugged in. Okay? I said three ways to steward. By the way, if you want to be in a cell group, please come and look for one of the leaders after the service. Or if not, you can just go straight over to that counter. But at the time, Rachel will be there, and you can ask Rachel anything about cells because she knows all the cells like the back of her head. Okay? Now, 3 ways to steward what we have. One is to be celled. The other one is to serve. Right? Remember, God put the man in the garden to abad and to shamar, right? To work it and to keep it, to serve. We have so much needs in the church, and there are many ways in which you can serve. Now, if you are in a cell group, you can eventually start serving in your cell group. You know, you can bring dinner for someone. You can bring snacks so that, while we're doing the word, we got something nice to munch on, right? You can or over time become a core leader in cell, and support in leading worship or be trained so you can facilitate the word, that kind of thing. Even doing icebreakers in cell, you can. And then in a church setting like this, we also have other ways in which you can serve. But before I tell you about that, a bit more word. Ephesians 2. This is the basis. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared ahead of time for us to do. And this maybe is language that maybe some days I'm a little shy to kind of spur you on, because it sounds like I'm always wanting something from you, but it's not. This is what it is. God's call for you is for you to be effective in the kingdom. God has not created you, this workmanship, this beautiful thing, with all of your unique gift mix and your own story. And at camp, we talked about the kintsugi, right? The bowl that was broken and put back together with the goal, right? That's your story. You're a beautiful story to offer. You're a beautiful life to share unto the Lord. God's created this workmanship for good works, to be effective in the kingdom. And if you come into the church and you don't do anything, it's like you're not working. It's like, I'm sure your kitchen has a stack of bowls somewhere. You're like the bowl at the bottom. People take the top one, and then they wash, and then they dry, and then it comes back to the top. And the bottom one only comes out once a year when you're hosting people only. Can I encourage you to be the top bowl? Can I encourage you to don't be the spare spoons that's in the other cupboard that only comes out when you're hosting people? Can I encourage you to be the one who is regularly effective in the kingdom? To be sowing, hands on the plow, pushing forward, and something is being harvested wherever you go? Can I highly encourage that, because that is God's call over every single one of us? And if you are not yet serving, I can tell you some ways and give you some ideas, right? There is a worship team. And there are drums. And some weeks there's no one on the drums. Because I told Lionel, right, we're not going to parah our people and say that same drummer every single week, Uncle Vincent, right? And I thought people over programs. If there's only one drummer, then 2 weeks a month we have drums, okay? And then we just have to get used to the fact that the other 2 weeks no drums right? Until someone comes and says, I'll be another drummer. Because guess what? I played drums in my old church, but I've not told anyone about it because I don't want to kena caught. But now, God has caught me. God has caught me, and I'm convicted, and I'm going to confess, right? I'm a drummer. Sign me up. This is my spiritual sacrifice to the Lord, right? It's my gift. I'm going to joyfully give, all right? Maybe that's you. I don't know. Maybe it's not drums. Maybe you play acoustic guitar, and long time ago you kowloy in church by playing guitar, and all the girls loved you. And many years later, you don't have to kowloy anymore. Maybe you still try, but and God says to you, why you don't cow me? Get your guitar out and show up in church because Lionel needs an acoustic guitarist, right? Maybe you love singing. You sing a lot. You sing in the shower. You're the best singer in the shower. When you come out of the shower, you don't want to sing anymore, right? And then showers of God's love is here. Come here and sing, okay? Maybe you play the keys. Maybe you are not good at all these things. Maybe you're better with the behind the scenes, right? You want to do sound because you like. You can't stand when the sound is bad, right? Or maybe you say, hey, I could click the slides, right? I could do this, I see the lyrics coming on. I could do that, right? Maybe you say, oh, I like social media. I'm on Instagram, doom scrolling all the time anyway, right? Maybe I could help the church with social media. Maybe I could help occasionally take some photos, Or maybe you say, no, I don't like all these kind of things. I like people. I like people, right? Yeah. And because of that, I want to be an usher. I want to greet people at the front, I want to lead them to their seat. Whenever I go to church and I see like large pockets of empty seats, it makes me like really annoyed, right? Why don't people sit there? I could do that. I'll get them to sit there, right? Lovingly. And maybe you could be an usher. Maybe you could be on the grounds team like Bill, constantly stacking chairs, stacking chairs. Yeah, you want to kowloy, like stack chairs, right, in church, right? No single guys here. Oh, you got. But no need to kowloy, right? Okay. Stack chairs, be part of the grounds team, right? Get out the tables for King's Table, right? Or you could be part of the hospitality team. You could be plating food, getting the place ready for the celebration after that. Or you could be part of Kids Church. Kids Church, For a long time, we couldn't really launch Kids Church because guess what? Bolang. Nobody say, me. Everybody say, when are you starting Kids Church? But nobody say, if you need Kids Church, I'll help you start it, right? But now, we have already started Kids Church. Thanks be to God. I want to encourage those of you who have a gifting with kids. You may be single, you may be a mom, you may be a dad, but if you feel that you've got it, let us know, right? Or you could be part of the prayer team who hold the whole service up every week from 8 o'clock onwards. These guys are praying already. Long before you and I got in the car to drive here, they're already praying for the atmosphere here. So many ways you can be serving in church, right? And of course, you be sell, you serve, and you sow, right? You sow. And you contribute, to what we are doing here in this church. Now, just now, when Lionel was doing the announcements, there was a slide, right? So, right? And you can see the ways in which people can give, right? And I'll be honest with you, I don't like doing this part. Elder Kuntat's very good at doing this part, and so I took a leaf from him. I was learning from him and going back through all the things he said in the past about sowing in the kingdom, and I try to learn from the best, okay? But I feel uncomfortable because I'm not naturally good at saying, hey guys, you want to invest in something, invest in God, right? I feel quite cringe. Okay, I'll be honest. I feel quite cringe. But I've learned something. I'm not standing here on behalf of myself. All the stories I told you just now, let me tell you that there is going to be a 17-year-old in the Tandit hostel whose grades in SPM after one long, hard year of studying, just made it. Just made it for university acceptance. And that's going to change their entire family's life because it's the first kid in their family who's made it into university. And then they put in their application, their enrollment, and they realize they have to pay their first semester's fee plus registration fee one shot. And it totals to something like 5,000 ringgit. And they can't. After 1 year's worth of studying, they made the grade. But they can't. And their parents will say, let it go lah. Just come back to the kebun and work with me. And they do. Because the entry into, you know, the PTPTN lah, right? No. One thing I've learned, you need to get in first, then you can get PTPTN. If you don't even get over the line, you can't, you don't qualify. So entry is hard. And so, one of the things that Stephen and I talk about all the time is, how can we help to get some of these students over the line? So when I talk to you about sowing in the kingdom, I've learned one thing. I'm not asking on behalf of myself. I'm asking on behalf of them. They need the help. Every single one of them who just about make it, they need help to get in. And I can tell you for every single one of them whose story I can tell you about how they need the help to get in, there are other stories I can tell you about how, like Bene, a sister who does the cleaning around this place, just needs to be able to send back to Indonesia, let's just say, extra 30 ringgit every month. Because 30 ringgit translates into maybe, over 2 months, new uniform for their daughter in back home, right? Or medicine for their sick father back home. And I'm asking on their behalf that you say, if we tell you we have two more Bene cards to take up, right? And until someone takes them up, they are going to be on their sending money on their own income. But if you take it up, then guess what? That month, they don't have to buy rice. They don't have to buy eggs. They don't have to buy oil. They don't have to buy sugar. That money becomes the extra that they can send home. 70, 80 ringgit, they can send extra home. Makes a difference. Who sent it home? The church sent it home. Jesus sent it home. Jesus met them in their place of need. And so sowing into the kingdom is like that. And really Jesus wants to reorient the way we think about money. That's maybe I need a reorientation in how I think about money. Maybe I've always been too scared to talk about these kind of things because it's very cringe, because I've seen it done very badly. But there is a poverty mindset, a prosperity mindset, and then there is a stewardship mindset to the way we think about money. This is from Elder Kuntat, right? When we think about money and possessions, a poverty mindset thinks of it as an evil thing, right? Oh, richness is bad. Oh, rich people are bad. Money, all this kind will lead you astray. If you have a prosperity mindset, then you feel entitled to it, right? It's a right to be rich. It's all out there. It's ours to go and grab it, right? But if you have a stewardship mindset, then money and possessions becomes a privilege. It becomes something that you get to hold, you get to have, not for yourself, but it becomes a privilege that has been given over to you as a trustee of it, right? Now, your work. If you have a poverty mindset, you work in order to stay alive. Pay the bills, just enough, right? I don't want all these kind of rich things. Yeah, rich people are bad anyways because I don't want all these kind of things, I just want enough money to just survive, pay the bills. Enough. I don't need a lot. Yeah. If you have a prosperity mindset, then you work in order to get rich and to accumulate and to accrue more and more and more and more and more. Like the guy that Jesus spoke about, right? I'm going to tear down my old barns. I'm going to build bigger barns. I'm going to stockpile more. Right? Then my net worth will keep going up, and then I have high status, blah, blah, blah. We don't actually say it, but we think it. But if you have a stewardship mindset, then you work in order to serve Christ. All of your work becomes worship. And so you're not just thinking about the gaji at the end of the month. You're thinking about the people around you as well. You're thinking about the opportunities for ministry. You're thinking about whether your work has actual intrinsic impact in the world or not, right? And you're stewarding the jobs that you have. Another day we'll talk about workplace. If you have a poverty mindset, then godly people are the poor people. Oh, the ascetic people, your heroes are the fellas who who go to the desert and worship God in monasteries. Those are your heroes, right? Those are your spiritual. Now, if you have a prosperity mindset, then the godliest people are the prosperity gospel. Pastors who fly in private jets, and they live in like really huge mansions because wow, if God can give them that, God can give that to me too, and that's a symbol of how God blesses His people. But if you have a stewardship mindset, then godly people are the faithful ones, and the wealth of the people, the net worth of the people does not come into play. Faithfulness is godliness. Amen? And if you have now, with your giving, and this is where I really want to be honest and share with you, with your giving, if you have a poverty mindset, then you give because you must. No choice lah, pastor ask, give lah. No choice lah, this person needs, say until like that, like this fella poor, so poor thing, cannot go, ayah, give lah, yeah. You want so much, I just give lah. Next time, don't guilt trip us in church. If you have a poverty mindset, you think like that. If you have a prosperity mindset, then you give in order to get something back. Wow, got opportunity. Let's have lunch. I want to see how this can become something I can leverage on, in terms of this, and I can find connections. You want to find opportunity to get something back from it. But if you have a stewardship mindset, then you're really giving out of an overflow. Whatever God has put inside you, you're thankful, and then you have more and you have access. It just overflows. Your gratitude overflows. And that becomes your act of spiritual worship, your joy. And the last one, my spending, right? If you have a poverty mindset, then you spend in a very guilt-ridden, and joyless way. Oh, must spend, must buy. Are you sure I must buy? Okay lah. Yeah, and then you feel really bad. Or you buy something nice for yourself and then you beat yourself over it, like for weeks, If you have a prosperity mindset, then your spending is callous and indulgent and self-centered, and it's, reckless maybe. But if you have a stewardship mindset, then your spending is prayerful, it is responsible, and it is fully accountable to God. You bring all of your expenses before God and say, God, I allow you to speak into the way I use my money. Where are we going with this? Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, says Jesus. You all know this story, right? A group of Pharisees came around. They were like, oh, should we pay tax or should we not pay tax? By the way, you get this in church. Should we give tithe net or gross, right? We get that, by the way, not in Sungai Buloh, right? But what's that? Blessing. You want blessing net or you want blessing gross? That's a joke that we make, right? But really, I really like this. When a group of Pharisees came and asked Jesus, should we pay tax or should we not pay tax? And then Jesus, of course, being Jesus, says, bring out a coin. And then bring out the coin. Whose face is on it? Caesar's. Then give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And give to God what belongs to God. You know what that means? We just came back from Image Camp last month. Right? Earlier this month. Right? Whose image is on you? God's image. Really? If it's really God's image, then yes, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And give to God what belongs to God. Whose image is on you? If it's God's image that's truly on you, then you can give your tax and then you can give your whole life to God. Amen? And that's why God asks for this thing called the tenth, right? And back in the ancients, they used to just give a tenth of their crop. They used to give, like literally, you are agrarian culture, okay? You plant, crop like this square, okay? And like everywhere from, Sharon to Makin to Isobel, and then this empty chair, right? I burn it up. It's siao. That's like 2 families putting food. No. I give it to God. Why? Because I believe that when I give that to God, He will bless the whole. When I give Him a part, He blesses the whole, right? And it's a little bit like this, right? Tithe is a reminder that everything we own comes from God. Let me give you an illustration, and then I'm going to close. Let's say Lionel and I, not let's say, we are friends, but let's just say, as friends, he's very rich, and I'm very poor, okay? And I say to Lionel, bro, you got opportunity or not, any kind of like, thing. And he says, bro, I have this piece of land. Let your family live there. You'll go work the land. Okay? You eat of the produce, whatever it is. Don't worry about it, right? And just live there. It's fine. I let you live there. I let you stay there, right? So, okay, I stay there, right? And we live well. We have enough. 10 generations later, my descendants are on that land. Lionel's descendants come to my descendants and they say, this is our land. Can we have it back? What's going to happen? What are my descendants going to say? No, we've been here for so many years, for so many generations already. It's Elder Kuntat's illustration, by the way, right? And he says in his DNA video, he says that possession becomes 90% of the ownership already, of the matter already, right? Because if you try to evict a tenant from a rental property that you own, you realize how this is true, right? But let's just say Lionel had the wisdom at that point to say, bro, your family just settled on that land. Every year, just give me 1 ringgit. Every year, on 1st of January, give me 1 ringgit. And it's just a symbol between the two of us, right? And every year, for 10 generations later, my descendants give his descendants 1 ringgit on 1st of January. Will there be any dispute as to who owns that land? Everything that we have belongs to God. But we need a reminder, you see. Because if we don't have a reminder, we forget. And then we think that everything I have is mine. And then we use it like mine. We spend it like mine. We waste it like mine. We accrue more like mine. And God says, no, you never gave your tithe. That's why you forgot. So I'm saying this pastorally. Let's remember. Amen? We're going to close now. Let's all close our eyes, right? Can I have the worship team on stage? Lord Jesus, as we conclude this membership series, we want to turn our eyes to you and say, Lord God, come and be in our midst. Teach us how to be. Can I invite Pastor Ramesh to the stage? Unfortunately, I have to run, but Pastor Ramesh will close this out. Lord Jesus, teach us. Teach us how to steward well. Teach us to look at the things that we possess and to trust you with every part of it. Lord Jesus, change our hearts and our attitudes towards the things that we possess. We thank you, Lord. Why don't we rise to our feet?